everyone. We're so glad that you're here, and we hope that you'll be able to have some takeaways when you leave here today, not only for yourself, but maybe if you know anyone else that is either looking to get pregnant, are pregnant, or wanting to get pregnant in the future. So we hopefully that this will be good time spent. Does anyone have any questions before we begin? Okay, let's jump in then. I put these guys up first because Dr. Allie and Dr. Jonah, they're both PX docs, and when they started deciding that they wanted to have a baby, they took like 3 years to prepare. Like they wanted everything in their lives to be as optimal as possible before actually taking that step. And so I love their story because they took the time that it needed to really get things right in both their lives, because it's very important that it's not just the woman, right? A lot of times a lot of the pressure of being really healthy falls on the woman, but we're going to see that it's both. That we want healthy sperm as well as healthy eggs, right? Mm-hmm. So today's agenda, what is the perfect storm? We're going to go over a little bit about that. Next month we'll have a deep dive on the perfect storm. So if you want more information on that, next month will be the time to come for that. How do we try our best to prevent the perfect storm? It starts with the nervous system. We're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to talk about nervous system balance, co-regulation, why it's beneficial to have a balanced nervous system during pregnancy, what's going on with the baby each trimester, so that's kind of fun to see, and then the first step in creating a healthy nervous system and how to build your circle, and then we'll have some time at the end for questions. So the thing that's bothersome is that prenatal care has become very medicalized in this country. And if you look at what other countries are doing, you know, other countries, we're great at trauma care. This country, we're #1 in trauma care. Does anyone know where we fall in prenatal care?
Delivery? Oh, you're saying as far as
worldwide. Where do we rank? We rank #1 in trauma care. Where do you think we rank in developed countries? I have someone saying 7.
15.
15.
20.
20? We are 45th.
Oh my.
We are dead last in developed countries for prenatal care. Dead last. That's what we hope to change. So America spends close to $100 billion on birth each year, which is far, far, far more than any other country, and yet we are dead last in the quality of care. The fertility market in 2022 was $7.9 billion, and it is expected by 2028 to be $16.8 billion, because no one wants us to believe that we can do it on our own. Mm-hmm. No one wants to believe that we can actually get healthy enough to get pregnant and maintain pregnancy without having to use a fertility market. But they don't want us to know that. Induction rate in this country, 31%. Epidural rate, and I'm not necessarily against epidural. I think natural is the way to go if you can handle it. But, you know, the epidurals, if you need it, if it gets to be too much, but that's at 70 to 75% of all births in this country. C-section rate, 1 in 3 women choose C-sections. Even the World Health Organization recommends no more than 10 to 15% of a population should be doing C-sections. We're way, way, way beyond that. Postpartum mood or anxiety disorders, 14.3%. That's 1 in 7 women will have postpartum depression. And then hormonal birth control uses is at 65% in this country. So we've got a lot that we need to work on. But what is the perfect storm? The perfect storm is a cascade of events. Prenatal stress is one of them. So you get pregnant, you're stressed out, you're scared, and who perpetrates a lot of that? The medical system, right? They scare us to death. But prenatal stress affects your baby's developing nervous system. So if you've got a lot of high cortisol going into the baby's nervous system, the baby is going to develop a nervous system that's already predisposed to stress. Inductions, epidurals, birth trauma, forceps, C-sections, and then of course the emotional state of mom and baby have a big thing to do with all of that. So what does that lead to? It leads to the things that doctors call normal and that they say kids will outgrow, but we know they don't. It leads to colic, constipation, ear infections. Well, those things in early childhood lead to sensory processing disorders, ADHD, autism, and seizure disorders. So it doesn't go, it's not one of those things where you go in, oh, it's colic, give some Mollicon drops, they'll outgrow it. No, they don't. They grow into worse things. And that's one of the missions of PX Docs, is to get people to understand that these early signs are nervous system dysfunction. And when we catch it early, we fix it early, and we prevent a lot of the things that come later. How do we best avoid this? Well, there's a few things. Empowerment and knowledge. They say that birth is 80% mental and 20% physical.
Amen.
So why do you think that they say that?
Well, we're conditioned to fear the pain of childbirth.
Yeah, we really are. We really are. And the mindset will shape physiology. So fear will tighten muscles. So if your muscles are getting tightened because you're afraid, how do you think labor and delivery is going to go?
You're fighting it.
Yeah, you're fighting it the whole time. So that's one of the things that also increases stress hormones. But if you go into labor, or even if you go into pregnancy with fear, muscles are tightening, you're going to have more pain, you're going to have more discomfort, and then once you go into labor, then it's going to cause problems there. When you go, what do you think, does anyone know the difference between the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system? Everybody does pretty much? Okay. Which nervous system is required to start labor? Any guess? Parasympathetic. Parasympathetic is required to start labor. If you're in fight or flight and you're scared, are you in parasympathetic?
No.
Now to deliver a baby, you got to jump over into the sympathetic, right? And then after the baby's born, in order to bond, you need to be able to come right back into parasympathetic, right? So it's a dance. Parasympathetic, sympathetic, back to parasympathetic so that you can bond and so that the milk can let down properly and all of that stuff can happen. And if you go into pregnancy and you go into labor and delivery with fear, none of those things are going to happen well. And what happens when those things aren't happening well? What happens?
Labor is stressed.
Labor's stressed. Sometimes it doesn't progress, and then what do they have to do?
C-section.
Yeah. So if we can get people's nervous systems adequately trained and prepared to do all those things, to walk through pregnancy with confidence, and then to go into labor and delivery, not only with confidence, but to know that you're calm enough for labor to start, and then you jump into that fight or flight to get that baby delivered, and then you're calm enough to bond with the baby. That is one of the things that we're trying to do. The second thing is the more you know, the better choices you can make. You need to know your options, because when you start going to your OBGYN, they look at things in one way, right? They don't really give you a lot of options, so you need to know your options going into it. And a good way to do that is to talk to someone like Kira, who's a doula, talk to a midwife, talk to other people.
Naomi's a midwife.
Okay.
Are you a midwife?
Yes.
Naomi's a midwife. These are the people that you want to talk to so that you can get a birth. Is it a birth plan that you call it, or you don't like that word?
Babies don't study their birth.
Okay, but
The birth wishes.
birth wishes. Okay, so in order to kind of get your birth wishes together before you go into the very medicalized situation. Does that make sense? To kind of know what you want. Also, if you've already gone, if you've done the work, if you've met with a midwife, you've met with a doula, you've talked to each other, and you really understand what you want, then you'll be able to respond to your doctors instead of reacting to them. You go in empowered, right? Instead of scared. So then we prepare in advance. Preconception work is a big deal, guys. I heard someone say, I don't know, a couple of years ago, that doctors now are telling women, oh, it's okay if you have a glass of wine every night when you're pregnant.
Wait, what?
What? They'd rather you be not stressed and go get your glass of wine than to say, no, cut the wine out. So a lot of things are being taught and being allowed that can be detrimental to a developing fetus. Alcohol is poison, right? So any alcohol is a bad idea. So I'm not sure why that has started to shift. But also, the preconception work needs to be, you gotta clean up your own diet. You gotta clean up your own emotional situation. And so does your husband, because it goes from both. It takes two people to make a healthy baby. So one of the interesting things, I think it's Cornell University, had a study out that I thought this was so interesting, because I had severe morning sickness with both my kids. But it said that they followed these people and they were researching these people and these women. They were trying to figure out why women have morning sickness. And there's a lot of things, because they say that it's because the hormones are high and that's a good sign, and different things. You hear lots of different things. But one of the things this study says is that women who have morning sickness, the husband has low vitamin D.
Wow.
How crazy is that? So do our men need to be checked for vitamin D levels? Yes. They need their vitamin D high, like 65 and up. Like good vitamin D. Isn't that interesting though? So all of that matters. Sperm health matters. Stress levels matter. Epigenetics from both sides matter. Epigenetics trump genetics. What do I mean by that? Does anyone not know what I mean by that? Okay, so we're all born with genes, right? We all have DNA. And a lot of times when we go and we go to the doctor, especially with autism and stuff, doctors are very quick to give a genetic component. Oh, it's genetic. Well, what happens if someone says it's genetic? What does that do to our power? It takes it away. Because it's like, oh, it's genetic. There's nothing I can do about it. Well, epigenetics is the switch that turns on the genes. And you got to turn those genes on or keep them turned off. So there's a lot of things that can be going on in the gene pool that never has to be expressed, because epigenetically you don't have to turn on those genes. So what are some things that turn on genes?
Diet.
Yeah, diet. Stress.
Trauma.
Trauma, and unfortunately trauma sometimes is something that we have no control over. But once it happens, then we do the work to get things tamped back down, right? So that was some interesting thing about the Cornell University thing. So mom and dad both matter. I can't say that enough, because you can't make a healthy kid with just mom's good genes or mom's good diet. Dad has to be along for the ride. All right, the nervous system. The nervous system controls every cell, organ, and tissue of mom and baby. Also, the baby's nervous system, when we do our neurological scans, whatever the mom's nervous system is doing is exactly what the baby's nervous system is doing. The baby's nervous system will mirror mom's. So when we do our neurological scans, we can see, is the baby's nervous system doing a good job of going from sympathetic to parasympathetic? Is it stuck? Is it already stressed? We can see that through scans, which is huge, because then as we start doing neurological care and get the nervous system working properly, meaning the brain and body are communicating properly, then we can affect how that baby's nervous system develops from the get-go. And then, of course, your circle, and I alluded to this before, surround yourself with people who will protect your vision for birth.
Please.
Would you like to speak to that?
Oh gosh.
Please.
I have a client right now whose mom and sister's going to stay with her at the end of pregnancy. She's so stressed out about it because they fight a lot. And so she's like worried they're going to get into a fight around the time she goes into labor. So yeah, they're not protecting her vision.
Right. So it is important. Say that again?
She may not go into labor.
Exactly, because she's going to be in sympathetic, she's going to be in fight or flight. So that might be a conversation that you can have with her, that, you know, in order for her to go into labor, she's got to be calm and
I
stress
told her I'd
free.
fuss with her mom if she needed me to. I need to go to a hotel.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So also one more thing I wanted to speak on with that was the fact that, you know, everybody wants to share their horror stories with you.
Yeah, that too.
Please set boundaries around that. Don't let that happen.
Yeah.
It is okay to tell someone, you know, I totally respect your journey, but this is not what I need to have coming into my brain right now. Set those boundaries. Don't let people give you their horror stories when you're pregnant. It does no one any good. Everybody's pregnancy and delivery is different. You don't need those thoughts floating around in your head of what if. That's not going to help. All right. So this is one of the big things that we do here is we talk about the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. So a regulated and adaptable nervous system is the most important goal, not only during pregnancy, but during preconception and during postpartum. Because if your nervous system is doing everything it should be, then everything's just going to go much smoother. So the autonomic nervous system, there's two branches to it, and we just talked about it, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. And the way that you can look at the sympathetic is the gas pedal or fight or flight. You know, if you're running from a bear, you want that fight or flight system to kick in. If your parasympathetic nervous system, that's rest, relax, regulate, and reproduce. You cannot reproduce if you're stuck in sympathetic mode. Why do you think that's true?
Your body's in survival mode, and it's not going to put effort toward that.
Correct. If your body's in survival mode, why are you going to procreate? You're not. So that's a huge thing with women who are trying to get pregnant, but you know, work life is stressful, home life is stressful, they may have some things going on with their health, they may have some things going on emotionally or mentally. You're not going to get pregnant that way. You've got to be relaxed. And that's the brake pedal. Any questions on this?
Dr. Rhonda, I do have a question. I know there are times where women may find themselves pregnant after a traumatic event. How would that necessarily be addressed, or how would you address that, considering all of the nervous system?
Well, trauma is stored in the nervous system, and as we get people under care, we can monitor that through the scans.
Okay.
So we can help, and we would want people probably going into counseling and stuff with that too, if it's trauma. But yeah, the nervous system, if you get the foundation, then the counseling works. If you forget the foundation and you just jump right into counseling, it might help a little bit, but it's probably not going to get them where they need to be in order to have a really good, successful.
So the sooner the better in the pregnancy that they start getting the nervous system,
Yes.
it would benefit both mom and baby.
Yep. Because we can tell if the nervous system is stable, and if the nervous system's not stable and you start throwing anything on top of it, so you start all the supplements, or you start counseling, or you start anything else, it can be too much. And sometimes it will completely backfire. Other times you might get a little bit better. But when you get that nervous system piece, then all those other things just start clicking. So get someone in, get them under care, start stabilizing the nervous system, and then get them into counselors that can really help them deal with the trauma. That would be the best case scenario.
We need to see that pyramid.
Oh, I know, I don't have the pyramid on here. Yeah, so the healing hierarchy is a big deal, and it's layers. You'll get a handout with the healing hierarchy on it at the end. But the basic foundational layer is the nervous system, because as we said earlier, it controls everything else. It controls every system. It controls your immune system. It controls your hormones. It controls everything. The second layer, and this is, it's also how the baby develops. So interestingly, the nervous system will come to that. The nervous system develops first. It's the first thing to start developing. And then the motor system develops. Well, in healing, you heal the nervous system first, then you heal the motor system. So if you take a child that, let's say that they're not talking and they're not walking, get them under care first. Stop OT, stop PT, stop speech for a short period of time to get the nervous system stabilized. Then the second step is motor. So that's OT and PT. Once they get that, so what we want to see is we want to see gross motor skills and we want to see fine motor skills. Once those come online, then you go to step 3, that's immune system and gut health. So you start cleaning up the gut. You throw in the supplements if they're needed. You throw in detoxes if something like that is needed, but you throw that stuff in too early, the nervous system crashes. Everything's going to backfire. And then 4th, it's where speech lives. It's also where all your brain stuff lives. So you get the nervous system stable, then you get the motor system stable, then you get the gut and immune system stable. Now you go to higher brain functions. So now the counseling will work. Now the speech therapy will work. Now you can get some things going. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions about that? And the sad thing is, our medical system knows very little about the nervous system.
So interestingly, that made me think of my youngest had a speech, he had a stutter.
Uh-huh.
And so our chiropractor had me have him crawl around the house for like 2 weeks straight. And went away.
Yep.
But we definitely didn't address his gut issues if he had it. So he was a mac and cheese and chicken nugget kid for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, my son
Magic.
also didn't speak for a long time, and we did all the things. We did the stool testing and speech, OT, everything, and it wasn't until coming here did everything really change for him. So he's literally the exact. He had a traumatic birth, and then didn't look in the eye even like as a baby, so. It's kind of wild how different he is.
I know, he's amazing.
I know, it's crazy. It's
He's
crazy.
so amazing. He comes in here, he's like the mayor.
Yeah.
He just owns the place.
He owns it. Almost a year now.
I know, it's awesome. Yeah, he'll just talk to you now and jump on the table and before.
Let you touch him?
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
How old is he?
5 now. Yeah.
It's fantastic. So, let's go to the next slide. So it all starts with the nervous system. The central nervous system is the biggest reproductive organ we have. And the brain tells the body to make hormones. So the nervous system controls that. The HPA versus HPG axis. Does anyone know what that is? Do you know what that is? Gonadal.
Okay.
Yeah. So just instead of adrenal, it's gonadal. So if you're on that brake pedal, you can see on the little chart here, that's rest, digest, regulate, and reproduce. That is how you get to babies. When you're on the other side and you're stuck in fight or flight, and you're stuck in that sympathetic nervous system, survival and protection, the adrenal glands are going to produce cortisol and adrenaline. Now, if you're pregnant and you're producing a lot of that, again, you're setting up your child to have a less of a tolerance for stress. You're starting the baseline too high. We want to make sure we stay on this side over here. So the HPA axis is going to cause stress. HPG axis will create babies. The bear analogy is just sort of what I alluded to earlier. If you're running from a bear, you're not going to reproduce. And the nervous system must feel safe to create and sustain life. If you have chronic fight or flight, it's going to blunt all of the hormonal signaling. So just strictly from a hormonal standpoint, it's going to blunt that. So the nervous system controls the hormones, right? And the hormones is what's going to allow you to conceive or not conceive. But if a healthy sympathetic surge is required for ejaculation to happen, but other than that, a lot of stuff around conception is in that parasympathetic mode. You also want to be low inflammatory. Like there's so many high inflammatory things that we do, especially with food. We want to make sure that inflammation is down because the inflammation will drive that HPA axis as well. Okay. So subluxation is what we call dysregulation. It's stress stuck on. So when that occurs, the nervous system becomes overstressed and unable to regulate. It reflects nervous system dysregulation, which is an imbalance in how the system communicates. So very, very simply, if you go towards a hot stove, if your nervous system, the afferent system that goes from the body and the environment to the brain, so that then the brain can make a decision and then react by the efferent nerves. If your afferent system is clear and there's no noise in it, then you're not ever going to touch that stove because your brain's going to register that it's getting hot there. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. If you go towards something that's radiating heat, your brain is going to register hot. If that system is not clear, the brain doesn't get the signal fast enough and you're going to touch the stove. And how long it takes for those afferent nerves and the brain to decide what's going on is going to determine whether you have a 1st degree, a 2nd degree, or a 3rd degree burn. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So afferent, I'm going towards it. Oh, that's hot. Efferent, jerk it away. Afferent, I'm going towards it. There's trash in my nervous system. It's not communicating well. Psst, that's hot. Yeah. Sorry. All right, so does that make sense about kind of how that works? And of course, the subluxation is often driven by chronic stress and prolonged fight or flight. You're stuck on the gas pedal. The other thing we see is people that have been stuck on the gas pedal too long, and now they just are completely crashed out. Nothing works. Mm-hmm. Everything's shut down. Everything's exhausted. Because once you're on, you can only stay stuck on the gas pedal for so long before the system says, you know what, I give up. I can't do this anymore. And it breaks. Mm-hmm. And so we typically see people who are still stuck on the gas pedal, or their gas pedal's already failed and they're completely shut down. Mm-hmm. And these are the things that it can contribute is fertility challenges and hormonal imbalances because of the HPA and HPG axis disruption, increased blood pressure, reduced blood flow to the placenta, and potential impacts on fetal development. What does chronically increased blood pressure create?
Preeclampsia.
Yeah, preeclampsia. Sluggish digestion, bloating, acid reflux, constipation. These are things that oftentimes are just commonly attributed to pregnancy, right? Mm-hmm. But what if we could prevent that by getting the nervous system regulated so that it's not subluxated? Mm-hmm. A weakened immune response and reduced energy levels, less than ideal positioning and alignment for both mom and baby, neck and shoulder tension, headaches, low back pain, and increased risk of traumatic birth and postpartum challenges. So these are things that can be affected positively through neurological chiropractic care. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? Mm-hmm. I know, makes me very excited. All right, nervous system dysregulation in baby. The high amounts of stress, anxiety, and inflammation during the prenatal period, stress interventions during labor and delivery. Okay, so we call that prenatal stress and birth trauma. Both of those create environments that cause the colic, the ear infections, and then later on the ADHD, autism, sensory processing disorders, all of it rolls in together. So in the beginning, you may notice that your baby has difficulty latching. That's one of the first signs that there's subluxation in baby. What do they typically want to do when there's difficulty latching?
Tongue-tie revision.
Tongue-tie revision. Tongue-tie is not a tissue problem, it is a nervous system problem. That's why a lot of times it helps immediately, but then it comes back. And they start having problems again. Because at its core, it is a nervous system condition. So why put that child through that trauma when we can correct that, sometimes with one adjustment? Sometimes there's a palate malformation, and if you think about what forceps do, think about this little baby's head, and they grab hold of it with the forceps. Where does it land? It lands here, right? It squishes. Sometimes it literally squishes. You know how soft babies' bones are? And it causes the palate to go high, and then they cannot latch. So sometimes we have to do some cranial work in order to get that to release and to get that working properly. Breastfeeding colic and reflux, constipation, eczema is another one. Respiratory challenges, chronic ear infections, asthma, allergies, obesity, sensory issues, ADHD, autism, speech delays, seizures, and so much more. It is just all a continuum of prenatal stress and birth trauma. And it's just so preventable. It's not only preventable, once you do get there, it can be corrected. It just takes time. So if you think about a baby that is born, let's say forceps delivery, they've got the squished palate, they can't latch, they start getting colic. When we look at how long is it going to take to repair this baby, well, what percentage of this baby's life has it been subluxated? 100%. Its little nervous system has never known normal. Whereas you take a child that's a little bit older that falls down, something happens, they get a concussion, how long has their nervous system been subluxated? A week? So sometimes we have to look at those types of things too. It's like, does this person know what normal is? Or are we having to train their nervous system straight from the get-go? Or are we just having to remind the nervous system? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Sweet little baby. All right, so a balanced and regulated nervous system leads to all of these things. Better hormonal regulation is not only going to help you get pregnant, it's going to help you stay pregnant, and it's going to help with everything in your life, right? We know that with hormones. Improved blood pressure and breathing regulation. Why do you think breathing regulation is important for a pregnant mom?
The baby pushes on your lungs as they grow.
Well, it does get cramped in there.
Vagus nerve, digestion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you're having trouble with breathing, heart rate, digestion, that's a clear indicator that vagus nerve is probably offline. So that's parasympathetic. So we want to get that corrected before you try to go have a baby and can't get into that parasympathetic thing to start the contractions. Stronger immune response, improved emotional regulation and stress response, better sleep, higher HRV for mom and baby, remember. Co-regulation, optimal development, better positioning for the baby. We use TRT. We also use Webster and Logan Basic. So we just are making sure that the round ligament, which can get really, really tight during pregnancy, we're making sure that we keep that supple so that as the baby grows, the baby has room so that it's not getting stuck in positions. We do not turn babies. That's not what we do with it. We just try to make an environment to where as the baby grows, everything's growing the way it should. And then, of course, better birth outcomes. Do y'all see this picture? That's my nephew and his baby.
Nice.
I know. It was so sweet. All right, during pregnancy and postpartum, the baby's nervous system will mirror the mom's. This is called co-regulation. And a regulated nervous system is important for all family members. So one of the things that we try to do here is work with entire families. Because as the entire family gets under care and regulated, it changes the entire dynamics of the family. Because we know it only takes one bad apple, right? So you get one kid or one parent that's completely not regulated. And no matter how hard we try to get the other people regulated that are under care, then it kind of offsets it at home, right? If there's someone that's totally not regulated. So we work really closely with families to try to get entire families under care so that everybody's healing together. Here's the cool part. So first trimester is the neurological blueprint forms. So week 3, the baby's nervous system is already forming. So that's when the neural tube forms, and that is the foundation of the brain and spinal cord. Week 3. Weeks 5 through 8, major organ systems. So we're talking, brain, kidneys, lungs. All of those systems are already forming at week 5. Week 6, the autonomic nervous system develops. Weeks 9 through 12, the digestive system matures and positions. And then week 11, the brain stem develops. So, before people even know they're pregnant, so much is already happening. Weeks 13 through 16, second trimester is growth and coordination accelerate. So you've got bones and muscle strengthening, you've got the cerebellum that develops. And the cerebellum developing, that's the balance and coordination center. We see a lot of children that have no balance and coordination. That starts developing at week 17. It's pretty crazy, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
17 through 20, the whole endocrine system now matures, so that's where hormonal regulation comes in. And then the vagus nerve myelinates at week 26, so that means that by this point, the signals are able to go really fast. And then third trimester, integration and readiness for life outside the womb. So weeks 29 to 32, the immune system strengthens. So when you've got someone that's super preemie, is that immune system regulated yet?
No.
Yeah. Rapid brain and cortical expansion growth happens between 33 and 36. The ANS reaches functional readiness for birth at week 37. That's important. Why is that important? Why do we need the baby's autonomic nervous system to reach a form of functional readiness for birth?
Oh, there's such a big participant in it.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. So like, you know, I mean, how many times do we see babies born before week 37?
What?
No. Well, I don't.
Do you, as a midwife? Okay. I know you had one, right? You had one.
We all did,
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, there's quite a few babies born before that autonomic nervous system is ready to actually come out and be a part of the world. And so those children, the faster we can get them, you know, adjusted, the better. Lungs fully mature, and then the vagus nerve and the immune system continue maturing well into week 40. So again, when we look at babies that are born before week 40, their vagus nerve and their immune system is probably not developed quite the way we want it to be. And so if we can give them a little adjustment, a gentle, literally a sustained pressure contact, it's like the pressure is what you would check like a tomato. That's it. That's all it takes to get them starting to regulate. And then the mom's nervous system influences baby. We've talked about this all along, but the baby is not separate from mom. So as mom goes, so does baby. The baby shares in mom's blood supply, mom's hormonal environment, the stress chemistry, inflammatory signaling, that's a huge one. That's a huge one. And autonomic tone patterns. So as healthy as we can get the mom, then we're ensuring that the baby is getting the best start in life. Things happen, right? Things happen that we can't control. But we know that we can at least do our best to get the best possible start to life that there is. And then the mom's nervous system is going to directly affect the baby's heart rate variability. We see that on the scans. The cortisol levels, so that's setting that tolerance for stress. The blood flow to the uterus and placenta, which we know is important. Oxygen delivery. What needs oxygen?
The brain.
Yeah. If oxygen delivery is poor, the baby's brain is not getting the oxygen it needs to be healthy. And then immune signaling, we get that from mom too. So when the mom is chronically stressed, cortisol does cross the placenta. Blood flow patterns will shift. Inflammatory cytokines increase. And then the baby's developing autonomic nervous system adapts to the environment. Now here's the thing. Our nervous systems are doing exactly what they're supposed to. So if they're stuck in stress mode, it's because they're trying to protect us. So we can't look at it as, oh, the system is failing. My nervous system is failing. No, your nervous system is adapting to what you're giving it. It's adapting to the information that you're giving it. That's a good thing. But there's consequences to that. So if it's having to adapt because you can't get control of your stress, it's going to have negative consequences. But the adaptation is a positive thing. Because our nervous system, our bodies are not trying to hurt us. Our brain isn't trying to destroy us. We're trying to protect in the best way that we know how. So you have to look at it that way too. It's like your nervous system is just doing what we're telling it to do. If you're eating sugar all day long, your nervous system's going to respond to that sugar. Right? It's going to adapt. And how is it going to adapt? In ways that are not healthy. Birth is a major neurological transition. So we want to promote healthy autonomic regulation. We want to be able to ease that transition from womb to world. We want to address those stress patterns from labor and delivery, because even a perfect delivery is still stressful, right? So even, and like slow deliveries, the baby gets stuck, all of that kinds of things. But fast deliveries are really hard too, because it's very hard on the brainstem. Clear interference from the nervous system, and then support recovery and regulation for mom and baby. I wish that every hospital, every birthing center had a chiropractor on call to get there as soon as that baby pops out. That would be the best for everybody. Adjust baby, adjust mom, let them do their thing.
Do you do home visits?
I do, yes. All right, next. Do what?
In Toronto?
Well, it depends, but yeah, probably could work that out. I live here in Williamsburg, so yeah. So we assess and support mom's nervous system regulation during pregnancy, and we do that through a series of things. We test. I don't see anybody without doing neurological scans on them. So like sometimes we get calls, just people, oh, we just want to come in occasionally. I don't do that. I'm a nervous system doctor. I'm not a pain doctor. And I cannot change your nervous system if you're not coming in regularly. It takes a lot, especially in the beginning, to get that momentum for the nervous system to change. Here's the cool thing. You know, I said that the body's adaptable, the nervous system's adaptable. Everything adapts based on what we feed it. It takes years, sometimes decades, for things to break. We can't fix that in a week or 2 weeks. We can't fix that in a month or 2 months. Sometimes we can't fix that in a year or 2 years. We can start the process. But here's the cool thing. If we can heal fast, we can degrade fast. And we wouldn't want that either. So it took us a long time to get to where we are. It takes a long time to get to where you need to go. But it's just like it's neuroplasticity. We've got to constantly be talking to the nervous system, putting that input in, because all of those improper coping and compensation mechanisms that you've developed over years, we got to get rid of those to make way for the healthy stuff, right? We can't do that by doing one adjustment a week. Sometimes we can't do that by doing 2 adjustments a week in the beginning. Sometimes we're doing 5 adjustments in a week just to get that momentum. It'd be sort of like telling someone that wanted to play, professional basketball to go practice for 1 hour a day. 1 hour a week. They're not going to get there, right? Because they're not going to build that neuroplasticity. It's the same kind of thing. What are your next steps? So HRV is essential. It starts with CLE insight scans. The HRV is the one that looks specifically at sympathetic versus parasympathetic nervous system. That tells us how your vagus nerve is functioning. And before you get pregnant, we can also use frequency-specific microcurrent to kind of boost the vagus nerve and decrease inflammation after we've gotten some stability in the nervous system. Once you're pregnant, we don't use FSM on pregnancy. And a higher HRV is going to be reduced maternal stress. Who in here can attest to the fact that after coming under care, you're much better able to handle stress? All hands went up. It's one of the coolest things, and it's one of the fastest things. It's like people say all the time, I'm able to respond instead of react. Things don't stress me out like they used to. This used to happen and it sent me into like a rage, but it doesn't anymore. That's a regulated nervous system. Reduced stress. Better sleep quality, improved cardiovascular health, and enhanced immune functions, all things that we need. If you have a lower HRV, that shows us that you have an imbalanced or stressed autonomic nervous system, which can lead to all kinds of stuff, including a high-risk pregnancy. So maintaining that balanced ANS, it also does proper blood flow too, because once again, if the heart rate is being governed by the vagus nerve, it's also governing blood flow. And then any professionals working with pregnant women need to be using HRV technology, but not very many people do. But it's the only way that we can really look at it. So this is an image of an actual pregnant woman through her pregnancy under chiropractic care. You don't want to be here in the red. You don't want to be down that low. This would be what we consider zone 3, which is a distressed nervous system. And what always happens is it will centralize first. It will go towards balance first, then it'll start going up. So she made her way by the second scan. She made her way closer to midline. She's starting to go up just a little bit, but then by the third one, she's getting close to that black box is where we want her to be in. If we can get pregnant moms into that black box before delivery, it makes a huge difference. Mm-hmm. So after your insight scans, I take your insight scans and I take your history, and I spend sometimes up to 3 hours, depending on how intensive it is, just researching, just digging in, looking at the scans, trying to make sure I understand where are we seeing all these patterns, where are we seeing these symptoms, what needs to change, how do we get them to where they need to be to have a successful pregnancy and a healthy delivery. And then I present that to you at the report of findings. And then the first improvements that pregnant women typically see, and a lot of these are the same things everybody sees, is usually better sleep, better digestion, fewer aches and pains, less pregnancy brain. For other people, that's less brain fog. We see that specifically on the SEMG pattern score. If the pattern score is low, I know the person I'm looking at is going to have difficulty concentrating, difficulty focusing, brain fog. When we start seeing that pattern score increase, and if we can get above 80, that stuff goes away. More energy and focus. And then from there, we can just get everything developmentally on